All righty, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our final Ignite SEL webinar. And today we're going to kind of dig in a little bit on that explicit SEL instruction. We're so thankful to have you here with us. I can do a quick check-in for myself here for self-care. Who will I connect with this week? I'm really looking forward to connecting with some of my teammates. I had a couple of Zoom meetings and collaborations planned. And it'll just be really nice to get kind of back to work with some of those people and some of the teams. As we engage today, we want to invite you to use two options for staying in connection. Our first is utilizing the chat, which I think most people are already getting familiar with. We do want to encourage you to set your chat today to all panelists and attendees. This allows us to communicate whole group. And so we're able to kind of use that back channel to share ideas, resources, and strategies. And then a unique feature to our Zoom webinar today is the Q&A. And so if you, same way that you access that chat, you're able to open a window with the question and answer panel. And we invite you throughout the workshop today, if any questions come up or if you have any wonderings, please put those directly into that Q&A. And we do have some time set aside at the end of our webinar today to come in and to look through some of those questions with our teacher panel. And there's a really great option where you can kind of give a thumbs up to that question and it upvotes. So it gives us a good sense of what questions are the majority of our people interested in talking about today. So today, as we dig into this explicit SEL, we have three main learning goals. The first is to understand the role that explicit social emotional instruction plays in an effective classroom, to learn from some of our excellent teachers here in Virginia Beach about the ways they are explicitly teaching SEL during emergency learning. And we also want to explore those questions and wonderings that you may have based on what's being shared. And this is really so that together we can continue to support the well-being, engagement, and learning of all of our students here in Virginia Beach. So when we think about social emotional learning, we just want to create a little bit of shared understanding here as we kick off. In Virginia Beach, we align our work to CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And along with that terrific wheel that identifies those 5 core competencies, CASEL also then has a really great tool, which is the Guide to School-Wide SEL. And if you've been with us before, thank you for taking a look at this graphic 3 weeks in a row. But in focus area 3, CASEL really defines effective SEL as including 3 interdependent components. And that really is the supportive environment, which allows students to flourish, feel safe, grow and learn in community. There's integrating SEL into academic instruction. And then today is that third component, explicit instruction. And they use an analogy of a 3-legged stool to really look at that. When all 3 of these components are put in place, we're really providing students the best opportunity to learn about, practice, and develop their social and emotional learning. So when we think about explicit SEL, I want to invite you to take a peek at this quote with me today. And within that school-wide guide, it tells us that explicit SEL instruction refers to consistent opportunities for students to cultivate, practice, and reflect on social emotional competencies in ways that are developmentally appropriate and culturally responsive. These opportunities provide dedicated time to focus on those social emotional competencies. So if we look at that as kind of that holistic big picture of explicit SEL, I'd like to invite you to share with us which phrase in this quote really stands out and is important to you. So we're going to launch a poll here, and I invite you to join in and share with us your answer. Which of these words or phrases really stands out for you? We're at about 90% voted, so I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds, and I can share these results with you. We see that consistent opportunity kind of took the lead today, so that 37% of us really wanting those consistent opportunities. But it's nice to see that the rest of those are sort of scattered throughout. So I want to share with you an acronym, and I know we're in education, and so there are just so many acronyms, but CASEL gives us this handy one of SAFE, to really think about what we mean when we say explicit SEL. And so they talk about SEL that's explicit as being sequenced, active, focused, and then explicit. So we see that when we're really thinking about explicit SEL, it's that connected and coordinated activities, really wanting to foster skill development. That the learning is active. Students are engaged and participating. That it's focused, that we can tell what are the skills that we're practicing. We're very clear about our language. And then that explicit there piece is it really does connect back to those 5 core competencies and those aligned skill sets. So in our classrooms, when we want to think about what does explicit SEL look like and sound like and feel like, here are some concrete examples or some look-fors that can help us guide our decision-making for our instruction. And so we see that explicit SEL, we really prioritize time to allow students to learn, reflect, and discuss social and emotional learning. That the activities we're using emphasize the development of both personal and social skills. It includes those components of emotional intelligence and emotional regulation, as well as mindfulness and self-care. So today, as you hear from our teacher panel, I just invite you to think about these 4 look-fors, and you can get some concrete, specific examples today that hopefully you can utilize while we're doing emergency learning. So with that, it is my great honor to introduce you to our panel today. We have Victoria Zakharmilotkovich, here from Salem High School, Jennifer Mallett from Glenwood Elementary, Macy Panuski is with us from Kellam High School, Adrian Jimerson at Kempsville Elementary, and Elizabeth Merce at Glenwood Elementary. Teachers will take a little bit of time to share with you. Keep in mind, we do have that Q&A option. So as questions come up, please go ahead and drop those in the Q&A, and then we will come back together, whole group, to explore those questions as a team. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Victoria, and she's going to kick us off today.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you, kind of, virtually. My name is Victoria Zakharmilotkovich. I go by Milo, so you may have heard that name before. I'm from Salem High School, and I just wanted to talk about my specific program that I have. I was hired at Salem High School 3 years ago to start the Social Emotional Learning Academic Concepts class, specifically for students with different disabilities in autism or emotional disabilities and specific weaknesses for social emotional skills from their IEP and psychological testing. So it is a referral-based program, and what I mean by that is I work closely with my assistant principal, my principal, and IEP case managers to determine students with that high need for social emotional development according to their IEP and psych testing. I also work with a school psychologist. So these classes have been going on at Salem for 3 years now. One of the things, and I know several people have been doing this, I think it's great, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but choice boards have been working really well with my students. I've been using specific social emotional learning choice boards, and I've created some of those myself, and I'm more than happy to share that, and also my Google Form check-ins. I love Google Forms because as a special education teacher, it is data, 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 and I can have this awesome Excel spreadsheet, and that makes me really happy as a behavior analyst to do that. So one thing that I really want to talk about and spend a little bit more time on is something that I started, I guess, about 8 weeks ago. I think it's been almost the whole time that we've been out. I started doing this thing called Thursday Tea with Milo. So on Thursdays, I meet with parents of the students that are in my class, and we do a 7 o'clock meeting. It's at night, sorry, not in the morning, 7 p.m. And during that time, if you can see me on the screen, I usually have a fun little different teacup or coffee cup This is a cup that I brought back from Siberia when I went to Siberia and Russia way back in the day. And so I talk a little bit about the cup, and I drink tea. I brew some tea. And then during that time, I share some tips with the parents. And it has been a really powerful time. I've had some nice laughs, and I've had some tears, and parents just really feel like they're able to connect with other parents that are going through something similar. So the Thursday tea with Milo is just kind of a middle of the night thing that I decided to do when all this started, and that's where most of my ideas come from. And then it's something that I'm going to keep doing, actually. I've had so much success with it that I plan on doing this Thursday tea with Milo no matter what, even through next school year. And the last thing that I'd like to talk about is my parent Schoology group. So I had another idea to have a Schoology group only for parents. And as we know, the parents can get on their child's Schoology, but I wanted a specific group. So if you want more information on the parent Schoology group, please let me know. That is something that that we had to get approval through our office for, and our computer resource specialist got that to happen. So anyway, I'd love to help you guys. Please message me, email me. I'd love to help in any way. Thank you very much for having me.
Like Angela and son, Jen Mallett, I teach 4th grade at Glenwood Elementary. And I don't have a specific theme for what I wanted to share, but maybe give you guys some options, and you guys can pick what speaks to you, or maybe something new that you haven't tried before. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Oh, there we go. So I asked my students, like, what does family mean to you? I've been using that term with them all year, that we're a family. And one of the girls in my class last week said, as you guys can see here on the quote, we help each other, we're happy to hang out together, we love each other, and right now we miss each other. And they really do. All the kids, even if they don't express it, I feel like are missing that huge part of their life. All right, so some topics that I'm going to cover are fostering relationships, celebrations, self-care, mindfulness, accountable talk, and virtual buddies. And before I even start, I just want to say that it's never too late to start any of these activities or options with your students. You know, we still have a month of school left, so even if you start next week because you're kind of apprehensive or something, or if you're just like, I'm not sure if my kids will like it, I think it's worth a try. So under here for fostering relationships, I have like 2 columns here, one in class and activities that I would do, and I'm not going to name them all, but also how you can do them virtually, because that's how we're all connecting with our students. So in like class or Zoom meetings, you can catch up, you can check in with students like a red, yellow, and green to see how they're feeling. You can do games and activities also, and I have more on this later. You can have a Q&A session. For elementary, we know that SEL was embedded into our emergency learning plans. But, if you want to have a Q&A time, other days of the week, that's okay for students to pop in. And, I have the one-to-one is always really helpful too, and Flipgrid, and also just sending special messages to parents and students. I have this screenshot of when we were playing multiplication bingo. Students at home just make a little grid, and we get to see who wins. It's just something fun that we've done, and he was super excited to be there, so I wanted to share that. Under celebrations, I put it's the little things. So our students aren't connected with us in person, but they still have so many new things going on in their lives, like birthdays, learning new skills maybe, and even getting pets, or just kids showing up and being there, even if they don't talk much. And kudos and shout outs, I think that kids love. So under self-care, this can go for students or for you guys as educators. So I have like 3 little sections here. One good thing, I try to encourage all my students to think of that one good thing that they can point out that's going on in their lives, even though a lot of them feel bummed out they're not at school or that they have to learn virtually. Routines that students really thrive on, and you might know if you've seen toddlers, they really do their nap time, and they want to eat at a certain time, but kids are kids, so they really do love routines and consistency in their lives. And also just unplugging, playing, going on a walk, riding bikes, and even just looking out the window and not being on a device and just sort of connecting with the environment around and not just technology. All right, so here I have mindfulness. I do have a Google Doc at the end of my section of the presentation so you can see descriptions, but I have some calming exercises on the left and focusing ones on the right. I still do them virtually. It was a little weird, to be honest, but they like that familiarity or just having something that they could use on their own. So even if the kids are just kind of staring like, what is this? I don't want to do this activity. They're listening and they're learning, and they can use these strategies to help themselves when they're not either meeting with you. And at the bottom, I just wanted to include that it helps them regulate emotions, improve their memory and attention even, and they can start to tune out distractions because we know that they have so much going on around them at home and just in their lives right now. And also a bonus is it increases focus. Under Accountable Talk, I have some sentence starters that you guys could use, but even virtually, some of the features that you might have that are on Zoom and or Google Meet are like being able to teach the kids to turn their mics off so they're still practicing the social connection that you would be having in class of taking turns and things. Raising their hand like this or giving a thumbs up if they understand something, or thumbs down or sideways. But there's icons too if they don't have their camera showing. Using that chat feature like you guys are, and you can control that. And breakout rooms to have kids in small groups have been so great because they can all turn their mics off and talk about whatever topic or question or anything that I've given them. And then using discussions like in Schoology and any other format that you might have like on Seesaw or something like that. Okay. There we go. And lastly, I have virtual buddies. So this is something that I'm doing as an innovation program with another teacher at my school, but we've seen the benefits of this. And, I just wanted to share that even you guys might feel disconnected from your colleagues. So there's fun stuff you can do, and I've listed some ideas there, like virtual field trips. Practically every museum or zoo or things like that have some kind of virtual or live video that you could just share your screen. Scavenger hunt, something as simple as saying, go find something sweet, and they all run off in their houses and bring it back and share. Just all those ideas are under fun stuff. The rewards of this would be to motivate kids to come, and some leadership. You start to see leaders emerge even though this is virtual. Practicing the communication, they're engaged, and it's fun. So how to start, maybe pick someone that you're comfortable with on your grade level and say, hey, why don't we do this at the same time? Even if it's Flipgrid, combining two classes would have the kids see familiar faces. If you want to branch out, you could pick someone else in your school, another school, or so on. All right, so here's just a little screenshot I took with my virtual buddies who are in second grade. There's fourth graders and second graders here. We were playing some games, and they just really loved seeing each other. At the bottom, you can see one of them even said happy birthday. So thanks, guys, for listening to this. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter, and I have a link to my resources there. Never too late.
Thanks so much, Jen. Next, we're going to be hearing from Macy, an English teacher at Kellam High School.
Okay, I'm here. Hi, everyone. I'm Macy. I teach at Kellam High. I teach 9th grade English, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you all for also being here to listen. So today I'm going to share about my experience continuing to swim through these uncharted waters in our emergency learning environment, but I want to do it in an easy way that's respectful to the SEL needs of students and teachers alike. So I've split up my experience with Explicit SEL into 3 categories to kind of help focus us a little bit. I've been using Explicit SEL through communication, my intentional lesson design, and then my consistency with how I use those things to keep students on track. I have a feeling that through one of these ways, you can find a way to embed SEL into your mindset if it's not there already. And I know that teaching and coping looks very different to each of us right now. So my examples and my concepts are just entry points, and I hope that it can fit somehow in your space, but no pressure. So using Explicit SEL when you communicate can be as simple as choosing words and conversations that support your SEL growth as well as that of your students and families. And I'll show you how I do this in individual check-ins with students and then responses to messages. So my favorite SEL strategy when communicating is these individual check-ins with students. And I wanted to have full disclosure. I've only managed to send 1 round of formal check-ins via Schoology since we got out of school. My goal is once a month, but I just want to normalize that this is a difficult time and we have to prioritize our own SEL needs as well. And with secondary, we have so many students. So I just wanted to say that up front. But it is great when it does fit in because a singular check-in with students can help them see value in who they are to you, and then have an outlet to share if they need it. I've had different responses to this, but I think all responses are any cause for celebration right now. And then I always include an SEL focused greeting and closing in my emails. It's easy and direct and then highlights your values right away. And I've showed an example here as well. And then there's a Schoology tip on each of these slides for you all to check out later if you're interested in some help with that to make things a little bit quicker. I know for secondary people that's important. So as far as intentional design goes, I think there's a silver lining to virtual teaching because we can streamline learning experiences in contrast to how messy, sometimes holistic learning experiences can be in the classroom. So I found that like reserving small pockets for SEL can catalyze my content instruction without how sometimes it gets muddled in the classroom. So I'll share about how I use my Zoom meetings, discussion platforms, and then finally how I've been using Instagram. So for my Zoom meetings, I focus only on SEL and then I offer content-related Q&A at the end. I'm upfront about this with students, and again, full disclosure, some days it works really well. I have a ton of students attend, and other days, sometimes I have no one attend from a class. So it'll look different on a given day or with a given class for you, but I like to have these questions because sometimes Zoom is a little bit awkward. Some of you might be feeling that right now. I know I am. So having questions keeps us going and then helps us engage with SEL concepts without going into any uncharted waters that nobody's comfortable with. I use SEL discussions asynchronously as well. I included my 3 favorites here: Flipgrid, Schoology, and Padlet, and then some question examples for that as well for you all to check out later if you're interested in doing that. And I've also linked to Flipgrid and Padlet. So my most favorite and the most unique dive into Explicit SEL that I've taken during this time out of school has been through Instagram. I have been using this platform since before the pandemic, but it has become essential for SEL instruction since we've been virtual. I blend logistical reminders with SEL. As you can see in the first example, I used a photo I already had of a mess I made from a plant falling from my ceiling. I modeled SEL explicitly through the lesson I shared about the accident. Whatever falls, pick it up, reassemble it, speak kindly to it, and then of course, I advocated for them to attend my Zoom meeting on the following slide using the same picture. So it was quick and easy, and then it got to them through their comfortable platform, which is Instagram. I also deliver explicit SEL reminders, encouraging students to practice SEL skills like I did in the second example with self-management, like stop and smell the flowers, take some time to appreciate the small things. And then the third example I used is using one of the features on Instagram, the question feature. I included the emotion wheel there and said, what emotion are you feeling? Trying to have students engage with self-awareness in a more casual way. And then that's SEL instruction as well. Yeah, so as far as all of these things go together, my synthesis piece is just considering consistency over bells and whistles. Despite the several examples that we're sharing today on this webinar you've seen elsewhere, consistency in just one avenue of explicit SEL, I think, can have a more positive impact than just doing little bits here and there. As long as we're coming from a place of empathy, from heart first instruction and authenticity, I think that bells and whistles can be left behind in some cases. So I hope that that empowers at least one of you to take the leap in that direction today. Yeah, so that's been my experience. Thank you so much for listening and being here today. And I'd love to continue this conversation if you want to connect.
Thank you so much, Macy. Next, we're going to be hearing from Adrienne Jimerson.
Hi everyone, I'm Adrienne. I'm a second grade teacher at Kempsville Elementary, and I am very excited to be here today because SEL was a major component and feature of the essays I wrote for Teacher of the Year this year, and I am our Buildings Teacher of the Year. But it's a concept that's very near and dear to my heart because I've seen the power of what relationships can do in and outside of the classroom, now more than ever, especially because we had those 121 days with our students, and whatever relationships we had with our students, that's what we had for a foundation to build upon once we were launched into our home learning journey, as I like to refer to it. And I absolutely agree with Macy that it's got to be part of your mindset. It's got to be part of your consistency. And so something that's consistent in our building at Kempsville is a phrase our principal uses all the time. And she says, it's heart work, friends. It's heart work. And it's something that you need to be proactive about. And it's just changing the little things around. And so one key thing I focused on this year in my classroom was having class meetings or morning meetings. And so when all of this drama happened, and on Friday the 13th, we realized we probably weren't coming back, my big question was not what am I going to do, but how am I going to get my second graders to come back, to come to me with virtual learning? How am I going to have them want to be here? How am I going to get them engaged? And so continuing one routine that we had prior in the school year was morning meetings. And some people use class meetings because they don't happen in the morning, but what they do have in common is that they happen or should happen every day in some way. And so I told my students in the final 15 minutes on Friday the 13th, when they were starting to get nervous and anxious and realized, I was all sweaty from putting together their go bags real quick in a hurry, I was like, guys, it's okay. It's all right. We've been training for this all year. And you can see I've got Seesaw and Flipgrid there, but that's some of the platforms we've used day in and day out in addition to Schoology. I said, we've been training for this all year. I'm going to see you on Monday. And they paused for a minute and they looked around the room, and then some of them started to giggle and some of them started to sigh or relief. And they're like, oh, you mean like on Seesaw and Flipgrid? Exactly, that's it. And so we've done that. I think I've done about 35 different Flipgrid morning meeting videos, and I'm going to continue to do them every day because it's a way that they stay connected and engaged, and it's something familiar, it's something they can hold on to, and they can look forward to that when everything else around them has been kind of chaotic. The tech really doesn't matter though. We've mentioned a few already, but how you use it does. And like one of our other panelist friends said, it's never too late to start. Start now with what you've got and just make it consistent and put your heart into it. They really feel that. So later you can get a copy of these slides from Angelin, and almost everything on my slides is clickable and hyperlinked to give you more resources to start with. So we've got different turn and talk topics, and these ones were so much fun because they were a part of our classroom morning meetings. And after our fun greetings, we would have a turn and talk with their partner, and they can't really turn and see them now, but they do that in Flipgrid. And so they look forward to a new topic almost every day, or a few a week now that it's been for the last few weeks. And they're like, what are we going to do together? And so they are conversation topics and starters. Sometimes they're virtual dance parties. We had a really cool talent show that I invited their friends and family, their grown-up friends and family, with a special link. And so they got to see their family members' talents, and it was just so much fun. And so they had something to look forward to. And I knew if I could get the students to come back every day for a class meeting, I had a much greater chance of engaging them in our work that we actually needed to do together, and it's definitely been amazing and happening. These are other ways that I've been meeting my students' social emotional needs as we've been going on. I found with elementary students, we've also had to kind of meet the needs of their parents because this is so new for them. And so I provided, first it was weekly phone calls to families just saying, hey, how you doing? How can I help? What questions do you have? And then it's evolved into, do you want to have a Google Meet family meeting where I can just check in with your family? And you can see here on the right side, this image here where one of my students I met with last week, she wanted to bring a flat Mrs. Jimerson to our family meeting. It was so funny. But her mom was there, of course. And it was just a great way to check in with families and see how I could help them. And I have all these links to resources in my Wakelet at the end of this, but there's also lunch bunches that I've had with my students who wanted to have them with me and with their classmates. And they sign up in Google, a Google form, and we even play some shared Google slide games together like Trouble or Connect Four or Tic-Tac-Toe. Something so simple as a game is just, they love it and it brightens their day. And then I kid you not, I get a lot more work out of them after that. But it's just so much fun hanging out with them. So feel free to click on the Wakelet. There are plenty of resources there that I have either created or that I've curated from my PLNs in social media, because I would not be the teacher I am without them. And so these are things I've either used or my friends and my PLNs have also created for us. There's so much there for you. Yes. So I am a product of those who I choose to surround myself with, because we can't pour from an empty cup. And so you've got to find your tweeple. Follow us if you want to start. Find people who get you excited to teach again, who inspire you, who validate and support your passions and your pedagogies. And follow your favorite ed tech and sites. I mean, they are fantastic with support these days. Jump in on a Twitter chat. Last night we had the VB SEL chat. And these are great ways to connect and feel like you're not so alone, because your needs matter too as a learner. And so you can follow us. I like following Innovative Play, any of the Teach Like a Pirate, Lead Like a Pirate, Learn, Play, Explore Like a Pirate. They're fantastic resources and people to follow, and they're real and they inspire you and validate you, and that's what we need. And so I'm a product of everything around me and everyone around me, these amazing educators we have here in Virginia Beach. We can go to the next slide, Mike. There's a heart that I use with Texas Classroom in their kindergartners, and I've connected with their class for the entire school year, and it's based on responsive classroom practice. It's We Wish You Well heart, and we check in with each other in Texas and in Virginia Beach, and we wish each other well when our students are absent and their names appear inside the heart. We have a shared flip grid where we continue to share things like stories and poems and letters with each other. And then this month, we're also going to be playing the Cat's Cradle String Thing game together. So it's a way that we're connecting and using purposeful technology to do that even beyond our classroom walls. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm really hoping that you're feeling inspired and motivated to try something new. And just to start with what you've got, we're in this together. We are better together.
Thanks so much, Adrian. And we're going to close out our panel with Elizabeth Merce.
Hey guys, so I'm Elizabeth. I teach at Glenwood with Jen Mallett. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys today. SEL is my jam. And a lot of the other panelists kind of touched on the whole idea that parents are important. And so that's really going to be the focus of what I talk about. But I always want to anchor what we're doing in that graduate profile as well as in our CASEL competencies. Because they're different lenses that we're viewing our activities. And when you're purposeful with that instruction, you can really find ways to embed it in everything and be very explicit on what you're teaching. So I want us to always kind of refer back to those. So some of the stuff I've been doing during this emergency learning situation has definitely been parent surveys. Those have been very important for me to make sure that the workload, the type of work, all of that has been matching the parents' needs, because I teach the littlest learners, almost kindergarten, not pre-K. But those kiddos are not doing this work on their own. And so it's really important for me to understand what's going on in the lives of our parents and our families that are supporting these littles. And so I send out surveys regularly. At least once a week, I've been sending out a survey to see who is still working, who needs assistance with something, who needs a support, but also how their kiddo is feeling, how they're feeling, and what kind of supports I can do there. So then I base what I'm providing the parents based off of those surveys. So one of the biggest things I do with the kids as well as with the parents is that emotion check-in. One of the competencies is that whole idea of self-awareness. So understanding how you feel and being able to give a name to it. And I don't know about you guys, but emotions have been big during all the stay-at-home stuff, right? And fluctuating. So with our littles, as well as with our bigs, it's really hard for them to understand that you can have competing emotions at the same time. And so I really have been validating that during our Zoom meetings with my littles. We always talk about how they're feeling. We have to name it. We can't tame it unless we can name it. We can't really address it. We talk about how that's making your body feel, because a lot of feelings, if they don't have the name for it when they're little, they might not have the name for it when they're older. I always, when I teach on SEL, I talk about how my husband and I got married. He thought if you weren't happy, you were angry. And that's because he didn't have the names for all the other emotions. And a lot of people have trouble with that because we weren't explicitly taught that. That's something I really focus on, because how you deal with frustration is going to be different than anger or disappointment. And so we start with all of our Zooms with how we're feeling and what we're going to do with that feeling. And that's information I've been giving the parents so that those families can help support along the way. When I say parents interchangeably with families, in my current class cohort, they're all parents, but you might have classes that are made up of families. So just know that that's dependent on your situation, right? I also love to use these zones of regulation because I feel like it's easy for even our small learners to really grasp on to what the colors mean and how they feel, and we can relate in different ways. You can use photographs, you can use emojis, you can even use inside out, as you see on the slide. But it gives a common language to parents, to students, and to educators, where we're all using the same kind of language, and how we, in order to be able to learn, got to get our brain back into that green. And that really talks about that whole idea of lid flipping, if you're familiar with that at all. So providing that for our parents has been awesome. And I've been doing that before the emergency learning, but really more in depth since we've left, right? So then, based off of the information I've gotten from my parents, these are just a few of the specifics parents on. Parents have had issues about lying at home, so the kiddos have been lying to them. Anxiety about schoolwork, that has been a big one. So my kids, where we would see that in school because they're trying to learn something new, we're challenging them, now the parents are really seeing that and they don't know how to respond. And so I've been able to help with that. Sibling interactions and conflicts, because we're seeing a lot more of that as people are stressed and they're staying at home, etc. And also self-management through scaffolded support. And what I mean by that is really taking that time to teach kiddos how to look at routines, teaching families how to support that in their little. Self-management is a huge thing, and even we struggle with that all the time. I don't know about you, but I need to self-manage myself away from the kitchen because I'm having issues with that. And so even our littles, you know, in order for them to grow that muscle, they have to practice it. And so families need to know how to support that. And so when I get these pieces of information back from parents that these are the things they're struggling with, and it varies by family. If it's just one family having that, I might have a video conference with them. I've had Zooms one-on-one with parents to address just their specific child. If it's something that's overarching, I'm seeing a lot of people on these surveys having the same problem, things like anxiety and scheduling for their littles, then I might do an overall video that parents can reference again and again that's specific to that. I share resources for parents from outside agencies, not just myself if needed, because you're not born knowing these skills, and you're not born knowing how to support those skills of other people when you don't have them all yourself. And so it's really important for me to help the parents, since I'm not there to walk through those steps with them, understand what to do. So if you want specific information on these, I can direct you to that, but I do put out information regularly on my social media channels on that as well. So thank you guys. I appreciate you all being here.
Alrighty, so we're going to invite you to take a moment and just process and reflect on and make some meaning with what's been shared. And we're going to use one of our engaging strategies from our SEL stockpile. So again, we'll invite you to open up that chat feature. Make sure you're set to all panelists and attendees, and you can choose one of the prompts here on the screen to respond. Thank you, everybody, for these thoughtful reflections. As you're finishing that up, I do want to invite you to check in on that Q&A option. We're going to transition to the Q&A in just a moment. So if you have any lingering questions or any wonderings that one of our panelists can clear up for you, please go ahead and type those into the Q&A now. Alrighty, so Miss Victoria, can you please tell us just a little bit more about that Parent Schoology course, and specifically just kind of how are you using that course to support families and students during emergency learning?
Awesome. Thank you for asking. You know, the thing I really like about Schoology is, as a recent graduate student that used Canvas, I like that Schoology is kind of a combination of Facebook and Canvas. So it's got the fun and the, you know, the excitement of Facebook, but it has the ability to do what we want as teachers through Canvas. So I love that. And what I'm doing is it's an opportunity to be able to post some discussion questions. Also some videos of me doing some mini lessons. I've actually done some of the lessons that I'm doing with my students. I've done them with the parents too. So I'm modeling for them what their child is seeing when they're in the video chats with me each week. So that's one way. And also just disseminating information. I know, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I open my email and I have like 150 emails, and it's like all one link after another and I can't find anything. So I find that the Schoology group is more engaging and parents feel comfortable just chatting in there at night, or maybe they're going to look and see the food pickup time, or you know, ask questions to me just as a professional. So I felt like it was more personal. And also the parents loved the part about my tea time. They loved being able to connect with each other. In fact, one of the biggest comments I got was, it was so nice to see faces of other parents knowing that you're going through the same things we are. So I think that Schoology group just helped them. And it's just on the beginning stages. It took a couple weeks to get permission to do it because I didn't realize I was doing something that had not had the ability, Schoology hadn't had the ability to do yet. But once Lee Cooper helped me, that's our computer resource specialist, once he helped me figure all that out, it's starting to grow. So I definitely plan on continuing it year after year.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to open this one up to the panelists. We have a question on how are you using interactive Google Slide games?
I'll answer that one. I didn't create them. I found them on Twitter because there's amazing people sharing all kinds of things for free out there. So you shouldn't have to pay for anything these days. You really shouldn't. The shared Google Slide game it's basically like a drawing of the game with interactive moving parts, and you share it with your student just like you would share with a colleague if you were collaborating on a document together. It works the same way. And so my second graders were so eager to try this last week with me for lunch bunches, and they said, yeah, let's try it. So it was a matter of telling them, go to your Google Drive, find the document I just shared with you, open it up, and we're playing on the same game together, and we're just moving the pieces around, having fun. And I think we used Google Meet for that one, but it would work with probably almost any video platform that you have, and we split the screen, and it was just a lot of fun. So that resource is also in my Wakelet, and you can follow the person who makes those games on Twitter, because I'm sure he's making a lot more now. Hope that answers the question.
Great, thank you, Adrienne. Okay, so great question here. They're hoping if a few of you will share one of your favorite student family SEL success stories. So maybe an anecdote of just, you know, put out there. We'll try to respect privacy.
I'll do it. I'll share one. So one of my students, like I mentioned before, I work specifically with students with diagnosis of autism and emotional disabilities, and students that have a more difficult time expressing themselves emotionally and socially with others. So one of my students that I've been working with since I arrived at Salem High School 3 years ago has had a lot of difficulty with showing any kind of active listening. I know that's a typical trait with autism of the turned or the eye gaze, But I just wanted to help him since he is planning on going to college after high school, just to be able to show that. Well, ever since we started going to video chats, he got on the very first video chat with me and looked right in the camera and engaged in a back and forth conversation. I get all teary-eyed that he had never done before. And then it was like a light bulb to me where I thought, oh my goodness, I've tried so many techniques and we've come so far in the last 3 years. But now in these video conversations, he is feeling he's not as inhibited to be able to face, because he's looking at a screen and he's seeing me through that screen. And since then, when we meet every week, he's engaged back and forth with other students in question answer, looking at the screen, being funny. And it's just been absolute night and day. So it just really showed me that this virtual learning, it can have a lot of positives, and it really can help students learn. And I'm going to use that next year. If I have students that are having difficulty with the active listening, then I'm going to suggest them go to another room and let's get on our devices and let's video chat and just see if maybe that helps them learn the skills until it becomes a habit.
Oh, thank you, Victoria. So Ms. Macy, what would be some advice you would give in using Instagram if someone wants to just kind of step into that and try it out?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yay. I would first follow other teachers to see what they're doing. I have several that I follow that are of varying degrees of use of Instagram. I use it a lot for SEL, but other teachers use it to just send out reminders or to shout students out or to do little trivia games and things like that. I would make an account and post about it in the place you most often connect with students virtually so they can see it and follow you. I have it in several different places, like right next to where I have my email or where I have my remind codes for classes, just to say like, please follow me on Instagram, because a lot of times they don't think to look for you on there. So it's good to advertise it. So create an account, start it up, and then just make it your own. I mean, obviously, making sure everything is like school appropriate. Like I would never have them follow my personal Instagram. I know that's kind of like goes without saying, but I don't know if I was very clear that I have a teacher account, and then if I use it otherwise, it would be for personal account. But yeah, I think just incorporating your personality into it, like that plant photo, I legitimately was just like, let me take a picture of how much soil fell on my ground. And then later I looked in my camera roll and I was like, oh, that could be a great lesson. And I used it just because it was a thing that I had and it was easy. So I think just making it your own and coming from wherever you would come from in the classroom is the best advice I could give. And then let me know if you need help. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. Alrighty, so we are going to pause there. And I want to invite everybody that is attending to engage with us in our chat. And we're going to try out a virtual one-word whip around. So if we were face-to-face, this is a great closing strategy. We can literally just sort of pop person to person. But today we're going to try it in the chat window, and then I will go back through the chat and pull all of the words and create a word cloud, and we'll be sure to include that word cloud when we send out that email. So we just want you to think, what's one word today that sums up your learning? Those are going to be really fun to look at later. It was going so quick, I'm going to have to scroll back, but I'm really excited to see kind of how this turns out. Before we close out, we do want to remind you of the SEL strategy stockpile. There's a quick bit.ly there if anybody is curious and wants to take a look. And within that stockpile today, we've modeled and practiced using that self-care check-in as our inclusive opening. We used a strategy from Responsive Classroom called Geometric Shapes to make meaning after the panelists each shared. And then we just engaged in a little bit of a modification with our intentional closure for the one-word whip around. Hopefully you can access that stockpile. Lots of the strategies in there have been updated with some virtual modifications. So we do want to just kind of put that out there if you're looking for some strategies for instruction. And that's going to be it for us today. Just thank you so much for being here. It's been a terrific opportunity to get to highlight some of the fabulous teachers we have here in Virginia Beach that are passionate about SEL. We will follow up with an email in a couple of days that will include the resources shared today, a copy of the slides. I saw a couple of questions go through, and we'll also follow up with those. So thank you so much for being here, and keep taking care of yourselves, everybody. Thanks.